What is up, guys? It's Spunkaby here for League Top 10, and today we are going to be doing our first impressions of Skarner, the Crystal Vanguard, Riot's new monster-type champion, one of the monster-type champions that are few and far between, no doubt. But yeah, we're talking about him today. He's been out for probably about 5 days now or so for US and 4 days or so for EU. And I've had quite a lot of time to play with him, to kind of get his feel and to kind of see what he's best at and what he is not best at. Now, to brace yourselves before this is not going to be a pretty first impressions. This is going to be a pretty ugly first impressions. So I just wanted all of you already Skarner fans just a heads up that this might not be your cup of tea. But yeah. So, Skarner here, 6300 IP, 975 RP, which is, at this point, really no surprise to many of us. Here's a little fun fact for you. Since Tencent, which is the company that bought Riot, has acquired Riot, there has not been a 3150 IP champion and below. So, yeah, ever since then, it's been 4800 and 6300, which is, needless to say, a little bit upsetting. So, with Skarner here, Skarner is a melee fighter jungler. That is what they classify him as. And I've had time to play him in a lane as well as in a jungle. And it wasn't fun. That is pretty much the most basic way I can describe the experience of playing Skarner. Skarner has cool abilities. Some of his abilities are really neat. His Q is a nice concept, and his R is an interesting concept. But in reality, the numbers just aren't there. To give you guys a quick analysis of how bad I think Skarner is currently, Skarner is perhaps as bad, if not perhaps worse, than pre-buff Yorick. Now, I know when we did the review of Yorick, we said that he was fun, but if you like disappointment, he was a champion for you, and that's the same case with Skarner. Skarner is like a pretty fun champion to play, but if you want to actually do something in a team fight, both early, mid, or late game, you might as well just sit in base with Skarner, because honestly, in order for Skarner to excel or do anything right, he has to have an entire team backing him up. The times when I played Skarner and I 1v1 people, same level, same amount of items, etc., I was demolished. I had no chance whatsoever, and it was pretty sad. Now, the times when I had a team effective behind me, I did pretty good, but I was not the reason why we won the team fight. I simply provided some decent utility, which is what Skarner does okay. So, what is wrong with Skarner? What are his main issues? Well, first of all, his main issues are mana to start off with. He has insane mana costs. Now, when you look at the actual cost of his abilities, they're pretty low. You know, we're talking 25, 26 mana, 40 mana, 100 mana. It's fairly low, but then you think into his passive and the fact that his passive goes off of actually triggering his abilities multiple times within the course of a few seconds because of auto attacks. Then you start to realize that 26 mana quickly becomes 70 mana in the course of 2 seconds versus 26. So while they're low cost, you're going to be constantly spamming them, and if you're not constantly spamming them, then you are even more worthless. So, mana cost really hurt him. It's like Yorick. Yorick mana costs were really terrible. But one thing with Yorick is his damage on his base abilities wasn't that bad. I mean, it was kind of like it needed a buff, but it wasn't, it wasn't like late game you couldn't get really fed with Yorick and do decently, But with Skarner, I've never been fed. I've never been super fed. I've gotten a lot of assists, but I have never been super fed to the point where I felt comfortable even taking on, a slightly underfed champion on their team. I just felt like I always needed my team behind him. In solo queue, when playing against players you don't normally play with and you're comfortable with, Skarner really does not shine at all. You may ulti someone, and then that ult would be completely wasted, and you cannot take advantage of that. Speaking of his ulti, let's go into that just a little bit. So his ultimate, which allows him to kind of immobilize someone, similar to Warwick, it's like a suppression. It's not a stun. Suppression means that you cannot cleanse out of it. You have to use like a Quicksilver Sash, something like that. With suppressions, the issue is that you find yourself not being able to use any of your other abilities with Skarner. So if I suppression someone for 1.5 seconds, I cannot cast Q, W, or E. Generally speaking, with Skarner, when you suppression someone and pull them around, you want to be pulling them either away from a teammate who's in trouble or towards your team that you can kill him. So most of the time, it wouldn't be a big deal that you're not able to Q, W, and E. But in 1v1 situations, other than suppressing them to do the damage and getting a couple auto attacks in, you cannot benefit at all in a 1v1 situation. The damage is okay. It does decent damage, I guess, at max rank, but it's completely one-sided when you kind of bring into the fact that his Q, W, and E do so little damage to kind of, complement his R, I guess you could say. So I find that unless your team is completely coordinated with Skarner, your ultimate is a waste a lot of times. You may see in a couple of these clips, I'll pull someone thinking that I got them underneath our tower or I got them near our teammates, but our teammates, the cast time is only 1.5 seconds, and our teammates sometimes just aren't quick enough to respond to that, with a stun, because they have to do some type of follow-up CC. Otherwise, it's I pulled you a couple of inches. Whoop-de-doo. So another thing that is fundamentally wrong, or not wrong, but something that really kind of knocks down his cool factor, I guess you could say, is the fact that his ultimate is nothing more than a suppression version of Rammus's taunt. Even then, with Rammus's taunt, it lasts longer. Rammus can use his ultimate during it, and Rammus can use his W during it. Now, that kind of stuff right there just makes it so that Rammus can potentially do way more damage than Skarner during the taunt or the suppression. And so I consistently found that tanks easily were out damaging me easily as Skarner, and I just felt like I was a burden to the team. Like I felt like my team had to carry me every single game. Now, Skarner's abilities all scale off of AP, except for his Q, which scales off both AP and AD. The initial application of damage on his Q scales off of AD, but it's only bonus AD, and the actual reapplication of damage is scaled off of AP. Now, a lot like Yorick, this is all magical damage essentially, so you have to itemize for all kinds of stuff. You have to itemize for magic penetration, you have to itemize for attack damage, and attack speed, so you can really proc off your passive. You have to itemize for HP because Skarner dies like instantly in team fights. You have to itemize for all these things. So you have to itemize for mana because his mana costs are so low. You have to itemize for all this stuff, and it's just I just felt scatterbrained the whole time, like trying to pick the best items I could potentially pick. And I just always felt like I was making some huge compromise because I wasn't able to get everything I needed. So what I found is that Triforce seemed to be pretty necessary in early Sheen to get your damage up a little bit because it does proc off the Q pretty often, and the mana is pretty much a necessity. You can jungle or top lane or bottom lane with him. I did jungle. His jungle's okay. There are myriads of better junglers out there than Skarner, but he can consistently clear the jungle. However, I will say this. If you're playing Skarner or if you're playing against Skarner, all you have to do to completely screw up his jungle is to deny him blue. If you deny him blue, if you deny him a tether on blue, or if you completely just kill blue, he is going to have an incredibly hard time in the jungle because of his mana cost. He will have such a difficult time if he's going standard like HP pot, and armor, that he'll have to go back multiple times and be completely under level versus your jungler or even side lanes. So denying him blue or not being able to get blue really hurts Skarner's jungle. If he's in a lane, you can go something like 2 HP pots and a mana crystal. that's pretty standard, and that works okay. And you build that into either a Sheen or a Manamune. I've done both. Honestly, Manamune gives you more spammable early, but the Sheen comes definitely into handy when you're building your Triforce. So you need to keep those things in mind. Now, overall, I have to say that as Skarner, your role is simply going to be ulting people and making sure to keep your Q applied to them. Outside of this, you're really just not going to have the damage that you want. Building him straight AP was not working. Building him hybrid was not working. And I don't feel it was the item choice that was the problem. I felt like it was just the numbers. His base damage is just way too low on his abilities outside of his R. And the mana costs are just way too frequently high. Early on, they're really high. Later in the game, it kind of evens out because you have mana items. But I just feel like these things really just contribute poorly to his overall playstyle. He's fun to play until you realize that you're completely useless. And then it doesn't become fun to play anymore. I genuinely detested playing Skarner towards the end of this first impressions. And I just felt horrible playing him. I felt like I was doing my team an injustice by playing him. So yeah, Skarner, as far as runes, masteries, item-wise goes, Skarner is going to, I found going into utility tree and getting the mana regeneration and flat mana, increases really beneficial. I also found, getting the magical penetration in offensive really useful since all of his abilities are magical based. And as such, that magic penetration is a little bit less of something that you have to itemize for in-game. So that really contributed. If you were going to play Skarner, the best bet right now is to go something like Triforce, Gunblade, into some tanky items, and then, perhaps an Atmez. That way, you kind of get best of both worlds. You get some AP, you get some mana, and you get some tankiness, and you get some AD. So, it's kind of a decent itemization overall. But I still feel like it's not going to make up completely for the fact that he is underpowered. And I would definitely say right now to hold off and buy him. It's always great for me to see new monster type champions in League of Legends. Kog'Maw, Cho'Gath, Skarner, those type of champions, Maokai. They're always really cool to have. And I do like the actual design of Skarner very much. But unfortunately, seems like these last three champions that they've announced, Leona, Yorick, and now Skarner, have all come out of the gate underpowered, which necessarily isn't a bad thing because, you'd rather have an underpowered champion that's buffed versus a overpowered champion that's nerfed, unless it's the case of Yorick where they overbuff him, then becomes this giant god, and then they have to, nerf him again. But I do not recommend buying him at all right now. He was probably the champion that I've regretted the most buying in the last 4 to 5 champions I bought. And I buy every single one. He really just does not do it for me at all. So those are my impressions, guys. I hope you can get some good information out of this. I definitely say that if you're going to play Skarner, if you've already bought him, that jungle if you have no jungle with him, because at least then he can get all the creeps he wants and he has blue buff. Make sure to have someone tether for it. And if you're not going to jungle, you can solo lane. But I feel that top solo lane is going to be super aggressive on you. And without any kind of, early mana, itemization and early mana kind of just making sure that you're okay in a lane, not spamming too much, is going to lead to your death. So if you're going to lane duo, just make sure to lane with someone who has another slow or a stun, just so that you can kind of stick to a target with your Q. And make sure that they make up for the damage that you do not have early, because the only way I can see you ever bumping up your damage a lot is to get fed early on. But that's pretty much the case with any champion. Anyways, guys, this has been Spunkify out. As many of you know, I do this for every single champion here. So if you like this, please give it a thumbs up or a favorite or whatever you want to do. If you guys are not currently subscribed to me, please do so above. I really appreciate it, and I come out with these every single 2 weeks. Not every 2 weeks, guys. And yeah, this has been Spunkify. I hope you guys have a good afternoon. I'll see you later.